All right. Well, welcome to our Lead Your Story resume and interview building session. Today, if you could please utilize Nearpod on the screen there, you can shows you how to get onto Nearpod and add in your code so you can get into the presentation and respond to some slides. That would be great. I'm talking from Fauquier. My name is Chris. I'm going to advance the slide here. My name is Chris Iden. I've been at Laurel Ridge for 13 years. I have a bachelor's in art and a master's in HR and leadership. I'm currently going back to school for another degree. I enjoy working here at Laurel Ridge, and I volunteer with the food pantries. And I have a little picture there of me and my family when I recently graduated.
Thank you, Chris. And I'm Joanne Elwood. I'm presenting here from the Middletown campus. I have also been at Laurel Ridge for 13 years. It was a great hiring year for Laurel Ridge for Chris and I to join. I have a bachelor's degree in business with a concentration in human resources, a master's degree in business administration, and currently I am a PhD candidate for educational leadership. I'm studying transformational and experiential learning for leaders at the college. In addition to leading the human resources team, I also really enjoy being a member of the Chase and Lab councils at Laurel Ridge. And I have a little picture there. I know it's really tiny, so I'm sorry for that, but I'm going to read it to you. This is a picture that I took at an elementary school in San Ignacio in Central America. I visited there this past spring, and it says, "You are in the process of becoming the best version of yourself. Keep going." And so I wanted to pause and just say thank you for coming today, for listening to this recording, if you're listening from the recording itself, to thank you for attending and to really thinking about your future and how you will lead your story through your resume. You are building the best version of yourself. You are here at Laurel Ridge learning and growing, and we're here to help you take that next step with your resume and interviewing skills. So thank you for being here with us this morning.
So our overview of today's session, we are going to be, as I shared, utilizing Nearpod. We also have handouts for you to utilize. And Chris, we will provide you these PDFs so you can have that for folks that are viewing the recording. So today we're going to learn some essential components of resumes. We're going to review how to compile your resume in an applicant tracking friendly way, show you some ways to respond to interview questions utilizing the STAR method. We're going to practice some interview questions and come up with a plan, an action plan, so that you can pursue jobs and internships. And here's an agenda of what we will be doing. Wanted to share that. We're going to begin today with a little check-in on confidence levels. Folks usually feel a little unsure of their skills for interviewing and resumes. So we wanted to kind of check in with our attendees to see how they feel. So how do you all feel about your resume right now? All right.
You're following along. We have the code for the Nearpod in the survey.
Yes, and for Chris, for anybody who's going to be reviewing the recording, we can provide a code for those students to go through a self-paced version of this. But it looks like we have a really good mix of folks that are pretty experienced and other folks who are they have drafts, but they want to get a little more experience there. So we're glad to have you here today. One more question. How do you feel about your interview skills? No confidence, you're a pro. How do you feel about your experiences? Okay. All right. So we have some varied experiences again. Excuse me. Great. All right. So we are going to begin with resume building.
Yes, and the first thing we want to cover is that there are 6 essential sections to a resume that you'll want to make sure that you have covered and included. So the first section is the contact information. You want to make sure you have your name, your phone, a professional email. We do note that because your email speaks of who you are as a person and a brand when you are marketing yourself to employers. So you'll want to make sure that that is a professional email. You may include your LinkedIn URL, so it would go straight to your LinkedIn profile if you'd like. And then city and state. You are not required, though, to put your full address. Oftentimes, that is not required anymore. A little fun to use this every time because it never gets old and it's pretty funny. We did receive an email in our office once for a candidate whose email was Satan's baby girl. And so while it did not impact anything with their application process with us, just know that it did kind of make us all kind of laugh a little bit. And so you just want to be mindful of what that email says and that it's professional. We also recommend that you have a summary and objective. If you are applying to an entry-level position, that is not necessary. But if you are applying to a mid-level position to a high-level position, you do want to have 2 to 3 sentences that talks a little bit about your objective, maybe what leadership skills you have or approach that you have, any philosophy, that type of thing. You might want to include that. The third section is your education. So include the school, the degree, the major. If your GPA is above a 3.0, you might want to include that as well. And the graduation date. If it's in progress, you can put that instead of in lieu of a graduation date. Certifications do matter. They count. More and more employers are looking at different certifications for skills and knowledge. So please be sure to include those on your resume as well. Fourth is probably the meat of it all is your experience, right? And so you want to make sure that you have all of your internships, jobs, campus roles. We're going to talk a little bit more about how to outline these using action verbs and data, but we'll get to that here in a second. Any relevant skills to the job you're applying for. Technical tools, languages, software. Again, tie them back to what the job description is and what the employer might be looking for in the skill set of candidates. And last but not least, any activities and awards. You want to list any clubs, honors, leadership, any volunteer work. Mostly you want to show that you are engaged, you have collaboration skills, and any other skills that would be developed as a part of those clubs and volunteer work. Any questions about these 6 sections that we've outlined? Pretty straightforward. Very good. Any questions the Fauquier campus?
Nope. I would like to add something. You know, Joanne, you mentioned your brand.
Yes.
And it's so important. You know, we did note here, you know, candidates do often put their LinkedIn URLs, not a requirement at all. However, if you are sharing your LinkedIn, and even if you aren't sharing your LinkedIn, but you have one, I do recommend always reviewing that, making sure that it is up to date, professional, make sure, you know, all those things are attended to because folks often do search. So you want to ensure that your brand is appropriately aligned for the role that you're looking for.
Very true.
Okay. So on your resume, in our handouts, we do provide action verbs. It's so important to utilize these on your resume. And when you are sharing these bullet points of your previous roles, please always ensure that you're not being vague. So it helps to not just have, I did research or I helped, customers. You want to provide data if you have it. So, that first example we listed resolved 40 plus daily customer inquiries, 79% satisfaction rating. Those are the types of things that employers really want to see, and that would help you stand out, have you stand out when folks are reviewing that. So make sure that you're utilizing those action verbs in those bullet points of your positions, and that you are showing, even if you don't have data, as much information that you can that shows your skills. So once again, looking at that very first, that first example on the screen, yes, this individual has customer service skills, and we can tell that they work in a high volume. We can tell that this example shows that they have a high satisfaction rating. So if you were to compare these two, somebody trying to decide who they wish to interview would absolutely favor the second example over that first example, which is pretty vague and doesn't really give much more information to folks that are reviewing the resume. Does anybody have any questions about the use of action verbs and showing, more context and data in these points?
I have a question.
Sure.
So, say you've done countless projects throughout your job, but you don't know exactly how much. How could you estimate it and really put it on paper?
Yeah, so the question was, if you've done a lot of projects in your job, should I just list a total number, right? Mm-hmm. Or should I kind of just detail out what I've done? And I think it would be dependent upon if all these types of projects are similar or dissimilar. So it really, I guess, would depend on the types of projects. So if they were all similar, I would say, yeah, it would be good to show I've done, 35 of these types of reports versus I've done, 15 of these types of reports and 20 of these types of reports. Does that make sense? Yeah. Does anybody else have questions? Okay, we'll advance to the next.
I always love a formula. It makes it so much easier when you have that right now. All right, our next step is to beat the ATS. So you probably heard about ATSs in the past. That stands for an applicant tracking system. So companies use applicant tracking systems to collect all of the application materials for their candidates. And so oftentimes, especially large employers, they will actually use that software and AI to help them begin the screening process. They'll help them maybe find, some, they call them usually knockout questions, like things that they're looking for that are required for the job. And if they can't find it on the resume or the application, then they won't present that application forward for human review. So sometimes that can happen, especially the larger companies. So our goal is to help your resume beat that system, to get to before a human. And so we have a few, actually 6 recommendations here about that. First is to use a clean format. I know if you go to a template in Word or elsewhere, they'll often have tables and columns and text boxes, graphics. I do not recommend using them. Not only can it be really frustrating when you're trying to make revisions to your document over time, but ATSs can't read them. It gets it all caught up in their formatting. So definitely do not use those types of tools. Try to eliminate the tables, the columns, graphics, all of that. Second is to mirror keywords. So look at the job posting for what you're applying and pull out what some of those keywords are, the skills that they're looking for, looking at the action verbs that they're asking for. And then that way you can tie your resume to those keywords and actually include those words right in your resume. Makes it really easy for a computer to say, oh, here's a match, right? We do recommend standard section names. So use work experience, not my journey or something fancy like that. If you think that there's a good chance that they're using an ATS, because they will look for standard headings. They want to just connect experience to experience. We do recommend that you save it as a docx, a Word, Microsoft Word document, or a PDF. I personally prefer a PDF because sometimes when you send things in Microsoft, docx, the formatting could get a little jumbled, where a PDF it won't do that. Of course, if you're already using our first tip and not doing tables and things like that, that will help. But even things like bullets sometimes can come over funny if you are not using a PDF. So I tend to prefer a PDF for that situation. We do recommend that you keep it to 1 page, especially for those that have just recently graduated. Really 2 pages are for folks that have maybe 5 or more years of experience. So really try to condense. The odds of them flipping over that paper from your first page are pretty small. So you want to just try to put as much on there as you can and keep it to 1 page. And then also make sure you're spelling out acronyms, but you only need to do so once. So like, for example, we would explain the applicant tracking system and then we refer to ATS thereafter in the document. Or the example used here is the search engine optimization. You would spell it out the first time and then you use the acronym from there on. What questions do you have about the ATS or AI or the general formatting of resumes? Yes.
I have a question. In my experience, companies have that minimum file size for submitting a resume, and I'm going to be honest, I just had more pages. Like one time I submitted a resume with like 200 pages. Only the first one said something, but there were 200 there to meet that file size limit because my resume says nothing basically.
So let me make sure I understand your question. It was that it wasn't large enough the first time?
Large enough.
Interesting. I have not.
Well, you might have a large enough resume. I do not.
I think mine is only 2. It's only 2 pages. That's fascinating.
Well, mine was like a paragraph.
Okay.
So like,
maybe
it says I graduated high school and I haven't updated it since.
Fair. Yeah, maybe a nice solid 1 page. And don't forget, actually, Chris, would you mind going back to the 6 sections really fast? I'll be quick about it. But this may help because I think you had walked in after this. We do recommend these 6 sections, which should complete 1 page for you nicely. So we'll have this PowerPoint for you to refer back to, and we can help you throughout today. But I think if you include those 6 sections and have a solid 1 page, that should help as you're meeting that size limit. That was new to me.
I'm taking these, by the way, because I gotta go to class in like 6 minutes.
Fair. Please do. Yes, please do. Excellent. Any other questions? Has anybody else encountered that with the size limit or max? See, on the faculty side, when faculty submit an application, they are like pages and like I think they're like in the end they could be like 30 pages long, and so we actually have a max on how much you can submit at once. Because otherwise we just have volumes and volumes of applicant data.
Joanne, I'd like to just, while we do have their 2 pages only with 5+ years of experience, I hear you, because there's folks like faculty who publish, right? So they're, like you said, their CVs can be very long. But even for myself, I have more than 5 years, but I just keep it 1 page. I just tell folks to just try to keep it, if at all possible, try to keep it short. Just like you said, it's, the guarantee of them flipping over to the second page is not there. So it's best to try to keep it as brief but as clear as possible. Okay. If there are no other questions, we'll scoot on to. So we have a activity here. So in Nearpod, we'll bring up the Collaborate board. And if students could just post just 1 strong bullet point from your experience, something that you could put on your resume under one of your jobs. And I will go ahead and start up the bulletin board there. You could just practice and share some, and you can use those action verbs that we provided you on the handout. Take your time. Give you about 1 more minute. Okay, so we have one here. Thank you, Melina. This is interpreted architectural drawings to produce production-ready CAD files supporting custom millwork builds nationwide. That's great. So that action verb, interpreted. No one else wants to submit one. That's perfectly okay. If not, I will advance to the next slide.
My Nearpod is literally exploding in my hand, so like
Wow.
you might not get one from me.
All right, here's another one. Develop and implement high-quality student engagement strategies that support access and inclusion to student engagement. That's a great one. These are excellent examples. Thank you.
I love it. See, that I'm not a math person, but a formula like that, it makes sense, right? It really helps with those bullets.
Yep. And it
I just
ties
feel
that. No, go ahead.
I just feel these are awfully wordy for 1 page. Like maybe I just use too big of a font.
That's a good.
Yeah.
Yeah, and I think as we move on, you'll see too, we will do an activity where you like highlight the ones that are you're most proud of. And so those are maybe the ones that you start off with. And there might be some editing. Once you have it all down on paper, you might have to adjust and revise and maybe remove some things if you need.
Yep. I always make sure I give it to someone to review for me too, because fresh eyes, that always helps. Okay. So here's our workshop time. You can utilize your worksheet, your resume builder worksheet to fill in these sections to try to sketch out basically what you want the aspects of your resume to look like. So we'll circulate around the room and help folks as they start to build their resumes.
Oh, no, please have a seat. You're coming in a good time. We're working on an activity, so we can get y'all caught up.
I don't have a pencil by chance. Can I?
I think there's, let's see, this one.
Or I think I'm very prepared.
Let's see.
Thank you.
I'm very good.
I got
Thank you.
one.
So right now we're working on building a resume. Okay. And so there is this worksheet here that we're going to use. Okay. And we'll go ahead and get started, and I'm here if you have any questions.
Did I? I have a resume, so I can just.
Yes, you could do that. Yes. Mostly what we're looking at, if you were to have a resume, then what I would recommend. Hey, Chris, would you mind moving the slides to show the 6 essential sections? So first, you want to make sure that you have these 6 on your resume, these 6 sections. Go ahead and check that. And then once you've done that, let me know. I'll tell you what the next step would be.
I know the handout says expected year of graduation. I've seen folks do both, where they list an expected date, or they simply just put in progress if they are currently attending. I prefer in progress just because I don't like to reflect dates of graduation. As an individual who's advancing in age, I am mindful of how dates next to graduation
This is my resume. I don't know everyone.
indicate age.
I'll look at
Folks would infer age from that, so.
Right now, I'm just looking to see
No, you're good.
all the components. I can look a little closer.
Job section, you fill out your most recent job first, right? Or the most relevant.
That's really good. I think maybe.
Right, so the most recent
A little
on
bit more about the skills.
and also
So do you want to use the
Yeah.
I also feel like my skills are just
Yeah.
lacking.
It's honestly for me, that's the hardest thing sometimes to
it's
think
not the
through
one.
how your experience has
Maybe
related to
working.
skills.
While folks are writing, I'll also share, I'm always mindful as a candidate completing applications and a resume about information that I am sharing. So like I mentioned a little earlier, you know, graduation dates, I don't like to reflect that. I'm aware that, you know, folks may infer things. So just as good practice, since I'm an HR person, I've been exposed to these things. I don't like to, I don't list a full address. I don't list graduation dates and I don't put pictures. But once again, like we said earlier, LinkedIn, right? Like it's out there, folks look at it. But I do not like putting those items on resumes.
That's
So
a good point, Chris. And,
Huh?
no, I was just saying that that is a good point, and I would also add that we talked about the professional email. There was a fad, probably more my generation, if I'm to say it, that they would create a Gmail account that had their year of birth as like the last two digits. I don't know if you've ever seen that. I see that a lot on resumes for folks applying, and so I just encourage you to really think about the email you're using. Thankfully, I think that trend died down in the last 5 to 10 years, but there was a while where people were doing that. They would put their name and like 83 or 75. And yeah, you don't want to do that as well, just to protect yourself as well. And then Chris, can I trouble you just to fast forward to the one where we talk about the formula for writing out your, here we go, yes.
This one? Okay.
Yes, thank you. Just wanted to show this for you as well, Jen. So you're right, no, you're good. So we talk a little bit about how when you have those bullets on your resume, let's talk about what you did.
Yeah.
Instead of you know, having me like helping customers or on social media, things like that, try to use this formula if you can to make them more impactful. So full an action verb from the list we have there, the task or responsibility you had, and then the impact. And you can see how it really drives those bullets to be more meaningful.
I can advance to the next one too, this one here. There you go. Give you all, what do you say, 2 more minutes?
Sounds good.
Still gotta cover interview.
Yes.
If any of you have taken SDV, hopefully you remember the Virginia Wizard has a resume builder there, so you can utilize what you are using, you're creating on your worksheet, and basically plug that in to the resume builder. Super convenient. Okay, 1 more minute. Okay. You can keep working on those. We're gonna move ahead now to interviewing. I'm gonna scoot. Okay. So there are different ways to interview. One of the types of interview questions that you may have heard or know the most of are behavioral questions. So that is a way that folks can ask you questions by seeing how you have responded previously in your other roles. And that will allow them to kind of gauge how will this person respond to these types of situations in this job. Excuse me. So tell me about a time when you made a mistake at work. What did you do? So your response to that would be to show them how you responded and show them in a way that they can understand how you would act within the role that you're interviewing for. For example, let's say the example would be I was at the restaurant as a waiter and the system went down. What did you do? Right? So I called the phone number since my boss was out to get some tech support and got it back online. I had some customers concerned about waiting, so I ensured that they had their orders taken even though the system was down. So you could show by way of answering that question, I kept a cool head. I did what needed to be done. I called to get the IT issue fixed, and I was attending to customers, ensuring that the customers were satisfied. So utilizing the STAR method, and we're going to go over that shortly, that's a great way to address those behavioral questions. Situational is similar to behavioral. What would you do? So you haven't been in a situation like this, or maybe you have, but what would you do if something happened? And that would allow you to show them you have the ability to problem solve, and it shows or reflects your values as you are problem solving when you answer those questions. Technical, those are, if you have a position you're applying to that is more, let's say, IT coded, or thinking about here at Laurel Ridge, we've recently hired for a lab tech. So they were asked to, mix up some things in the lab, not really lab oriented, so I can't get technical there, but those are some examples of interview types. Now, phone screenings, those are more for, let's say the employer is definitely interested in interviewing you as a candidate and would like to kind of do a pre-interview. That's generally what phone screens are for. We here at the college utilize some technology that's very similar to a phone screen, but allows them to answer questions on their own time, and then submit them the answers for us to view in our own time. So a great tip for that, by the way, keep that resume in front of you. If you're, not going to be there, that helps you if you need some prompting. Panel interviews, it's pretty common. Here, we do that here at Laurel Ridge, where we have an interview committee. I understand that, it could be a little intimidating. Interviews are always kind of nerve-inducing, right? But when you walk into a room and you're interviewing with multiple folks, that could be definitely intimidating. I think the most important thing to realize when you're interviewing is to acknowledge that it is an anxious situation for a lot of folks. And even the folks that are interviewing you have been nervous in interviews. Like, we're all human and we've all been there. Making eye contact goes a long way. Reflecting that you are having what we call engagement, right? Showing that you're actively listening to what is being said is very helpful. And then group candidates, these are a little less frequent when you have candidates next to each other answering questions. I guess if you would come up with an example, in politics, when you have all the candidates up on stage and they're being asked questions of a moderator, it's very similar to something like that. But yeah, leading and collaborating, listening very closely to make sure that your answers are appropriate and concise and demonstrate how you are best for that role. That's really important. Does anybody have any questions on the types of interviews? We're going to delve in a little more on the next slide about how to respond to these types of questions. Okay.
Okay, so next we are going to talk about the STAR method that Chris previewed there. I really love the STAR method, both as somebody who listens to interviews as well as somebody who has been interviewed. The STAR method, I feel, really helps us articulate clearly and concisely what our experience is in a way that just helps the interviewer know, like, yes, they have this experience. This is great. So what the STAR method is, it is another acronym, of course. Sorry, it's an acronym, but the S stands for situation, the T for task, A for action, and R for result. So we'll talk about each of these a little separately. So when you have a question presented to you in an interview, the first thing you want to do is to really set the scene. Talk about the situation. Where were you? What was happening? These are really great, particularly for behavioral based interview questions where they're asking you, tell us a time when. It can also apply to situational too. If they say, tell us what you would do in this case, kind of still think about answering in this format because it really helps. So as we talked about, the first one is just setting the scene. Where were you? What was happening? Maybe what was at stake? In this, we'll walk through this. This one is, tell me a time you led a team as the example. So the situation was, I was in a group project for my marketing class with 5 teammates. Sometimes, like I said, if you wanted to think about how this impacts, you could even say like the project was worth half the grade or something like that. Talk about what the importance was of the situation. And then the task is what your responsibility or challenge. So in our example here, our team was behind schedule and I stepped up to reorganize our workflow. So that was the responsibility or challenge that you were faced in this example. In terms of action, it encouraged you to talk about what specific steps you took. This is very important. This is the time for you to, I know sometimes it feels uncomfortable if you're bragging or something, but they want to know what you did in this situation. They hear they think that maybe you didn't really do those tasks or you relied on others. You want to really take ownership over what you did in this situation to help. So here, the action example is I created a shared timeline in Notion, assigned clear roles, and ran daily check-ins. And then the next one in this framework is R, the result. What was the outcome? And if you can quantify it, even better. So the result example here was we submitted 2 days early and received an A. Our professor highlighted our work in the next class. So using the STAR method, it helps the interviewer know immediately what the situation was, what was your responsibility, what action you took, and the result. And then it clearly articulates for them that you've answered that question, you have that experience. Any questions about using the STAR method? I will tell you, there are some employers that appreciate using this so much that they will actually prompt the interviewee, the candidates, to answer in this way. They'll ask you what the situation was with the task, they'll walk you through it. But I will tell you, if you do this automatically, employers will love it.
Yeah, you know, the STAR method, it really allows the interviewee to have, the interviewer to have full context of what the candidate is sharing in the experience that they're providing. And that's so important. Okay.
Has anybody been asked STAR questions in the past? You know? Experience that. Oh, can I just add one more thing, Chris? I'm sorry, I made a note.
Please.
Just thinking about interviews, another thing to keep in mind is you are just as much interviewing them as an employer. You want to make sure this is a good fit for you too. So be prepared with some questions to ask them if there's time permitting. And not only will it show that you're engaged and you care enough to ask questions, but as I said, this is a time for you to get a read on, is this a place that I can see myself working? Do I share similar values to them? Am I interested in the work? Things like that. And so just always keep that in mind as you're interviewing, that it is a bit of a two-way street.
Absolutely. And you know, the interview prep handout we gave, it makes a suggestion of when you do your research prior to an interview on the company, it's important to look at things like, what are their values? What is their mission? What is their goal? It helps to provide you information. You are more informed when you're going into this interview. And yes, always have a question. Absolutely. We're going to skip these quiz questions, just time permitting here is getting a little short. So some information here about body language. I talked a little earlier about active listening and showing engagement. So here are some suggestions, do and don'ts when it comes to interviewing. I'll let you just read up on these, but I did want to share, you know, you want to make sure that you're showing that you're paying attention, that you are engaged, this matters to you. So, you know, on your phone, you want to skip doing those types of things. You want to ensure that you're not crossing your arms. That actually, you know, body language that suggests that you are closed off or not interested. Also, a lot of employers appreciate eye contact because it does show that folks are paying attention and are engaged. As a neurodivergent person, I always share, especially with our committees here at the college that are interviewing, there are some folks that it's hard to make eye contact. So there are some tips here on the screen to help you. If eye contact is a hard thing, there are ways you can just look at parts of somebody's face and it looks like you're looking at their eyes. Practice, though, is very helpful in this area, especially with eye contact if you're uncomfortable with that. Also, it's always helpful, and I don't know how you feel about this, Joanne, but practicing the handshake. I think, you know, not just going into the interview and while you're handshaking going, oh, my handshake could use a little work, you know, you want to make sure that you have a good firm handshake, you know, practiced before your interview.
I agree with that. I had a business professor in undergrad that at the end of every class, she had us walk out and shake her hand for practice. So that is very true. Yes.
I love that. That's really smart. And take notes. That's a really good tip too. Taking notes, especially if you are having difficulty with eye contact, that's a way that you can show I am paying attention. So yeah.
I just have a question about the handshaking, because like when I feel like a lot would kind of be very technology based. Like I have an interview on Friday, which is why I'm here. I have an interview on Friday, and it's online, so there really is no handshake.
That's right.
Like, do I wave? What am I?
That's a good question. Yes. And so I don't know if you could hear that up here. The question was, with more interviews occurring online through things like Zoom and such, the handshake is really not existent. So is there something else that they should be doing as they're leaving, like a wave or something similar? And that is a good point. I think when I do see people leave Zooms, I see folks do a little wave. And I think it is as appropriate to just reiterate to thank them for their time and we appreciated meeting them. Just general etiquette there. Chris, would you add anything more?
No, that's great. The only other thing I would add for online type of interview is for myself, I always show up a little early, but I would definitely make sure I've got the computer, set, all those little potential issues are kind of worked out so that you're able to log on time without any issues.
That's a good point. And checking your like microphone volume. If you use a virtual, like a filter or something, just making sure it's appropriate. The filters would be fine, so you wouldn't have to show them where you're sitting or anything like that. But yes, some of those things to think about.
Great point, Joanne, on the filter. Do you remember during the pandemic, one of my favorite videos was there was a lawyer who showed up to a hearing and he had a cat filter.
Children got a hold of it at a time. It's pretty funny.
Everybody makes those mistakes. It's just important to just keep that in the back of your mind.
Another tip I would recommend too, just in general, if you have an interview with a company, definitely the spreadsheet does say to go in and look at their values and all that, but take a look because sometimes companies will tell you like what questions they're going to ask and things like that. They're very proactive about sharing what their values are and stuff. And so that tends to be some of the larger companies, but definitely take advantage of that. Scope that out, see what they say. There are companies that do that. Like, for example, if you go on Amazon or Walmart, I think the ones that I've seen more recently, they tell you flat out what their questions are going to be. Now, they're not easy questions by any means. It takes some planning, but you have the script right there and you can prepare. So it's definitely worth doing a little research.
Absolutely. We skipping ahead to kind of our wrap up since it's almost 1. We just have some resources listed here. So Virginia Wizard, I mentioned it a little earlier, but if you just log in, that does have that resume builder. You can use that information that you began working on the worksheet and create that resume. Also, interview prep. The handout is very helpful. And I also want to point out Forage. College has access to Forage, and you can actually not just practice interviews through Forage, but it actually provides kind of insight into actual jobs out there, what is involved in these jobs, and allows you the chance to practice some of these skills and also practice interviewing. So cannot recommend that enough. Also, if you go to Laurel Ridge website, if you just type in career services, you will have a slew of resources right there at your fingertips. Excuse me. And then lastly, we mentioned this earlier, but LinkedIn, make sure it's updated. Your resume information is updated. It's polished. Think about that brand. Make sure your email is good. And then also, if you'd like, you can absolutely reach out to us Joanne and myself, and we would love to help you. We enjoy helping students with resume review, and we would absolutely support that. Joanne, I wasn't sure your total amount of years in the industry. I just kind of took a good guess there, but
That's good. It's been a lot. I'm getting older now, so it's just.
So here's the slide with our contact information. If you would like to send us an email, if you would like us to review, we would be more than happy to. And we will be here for the rest of today too. If anyone would like us to review your resume or just talk in general about any questions you may have.
I will say last year I had a student share with me that they had taken it to like a consultant to review the resume, and it cost hundreds of dollars. And he brought it to me and he said, I should have just come to you to begin with because you gave me more tips. And so please just come see us. We love doing this. We appreciate being able to look at resumes and help build them for you. So please just let us know. We're here to review them and give us our tips after working in human resources for, as Chris said, many years. So thank you.
Thank you so much.